And we are live.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I think is this our first podcast? This is our first podcast of the month.
Yep.
It took me a while to catch on to that.
Because what is time, honestly?
What is time? Oh my gosh. But everybody, welcome to Black Prose Podcast, where Black lives, Black voices, and Black stories have always mattered. And tonight we're doing something a little bit different. We are doing a review of a very popular reality television show brought to us by Netflix. But before we go further into that, my name is Oshale of Oshi Reads, one of your hosts for tonight's podcast.
And I'm Brittany from Melanin Eclectic on all platforms.
I love that. And tonight we are discussing Love is Blind Season 2. Again, if you have been hiding under a rock, this is not the podcast episode for you. You definitely want to make sure that you have watched all of the episodes, unless you don't mind being spoiled, including the reunion special, because we will basically be giving our overall thoughts, feelings behind everything in the entire season. And we are not going to be holding back. So just so you know.
Not at all.
So if you don't want to be spoiled, if you still have it on your to-watch list, come back to this podcast after you've watched it, because we're not going to be explaining too much. We're just going to be talking as if you already know what we're talking about.
Yep.
Disclaimer. Brittany, do you want to take over?
Please remember, this is reality TV. This is just for enjoyment. Yes. Sometimes we need to just laugh at the stuff that we're presented with. And we decided that we were going to just enjoy it, just no matter how bad it was. And really, it just prompted us to have conversations that we just felt like we wanted to share with you guys.
Exactly. And we do not know these people in real life, obviously. Reality TV is somewhat scripted and very edited. So despite our feelings and thoughts, we are not saying that this is how they are for sure in real life, because we don't know them. But this is how we feel about the characters that they showed on TV. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so Love is Blind Season 2. Again, I just want to start by saying, again, it was hosted by Vanessa and Nick Lachey, and I'm still confused as well. The first season, it makes sense, but this season, I was kind of like, why are they the host? Why didn't they ask Lauren and Cameron? That would have made more sense to me.
Oh, really?
Yes, because I feel like they want to bring a couple who's been successful and the audience loves and feels familiar with. Vanessa and Nick Lachey seemed like they didn't have a lot of purpose in the show. Like, even when they showed up, they didn't seem like they knew the contestants that well. They didn't seem that involved. They were just kind of there at certain moments to be like, okay, now that this has happened, I don't know. I can't explain it, but I didn't feel like half the time I was like, oh, I forgot that they were there. And then when I saw them again, I was like, oh, okay, hi.
This entire time I thought this was their show. Like, I thought they owned the show, so that's why they were the host. I didn't even think anything about that.
No, they don't own the show at all. They picked them at first because Netflix never thought that the show was going to, they didn't realize how popular the show was going to be. They had no clue. So I'm thinking that's why they got the job, because no offense to them, but it's not like they were on anyone's radar or anything like that to host something. So when it just took off and became this hit show, now I'm like, okay, why don't you bring back a couple that's been really successful? I mean, I don't want anybody to lose their job, but that's just kind of how I felt about it.
I mean, also, I think that's the only couple anybody ever really cared about anyway.
Agreed.
It's like, I didn't even watch season 1, but I knew exactly who Lauren and Cameron were. Like, so without question. So I feel like I understand where you're coming from now.
So we start off, and this is something that, Brittany, I know you and I have talked about before this. So the cast was actually 30 people. It was 15 women and 15 men to go on the pod dates. However, we only end up following 10 people, 5 couples in total. And there were a lot of red flags to me in the way that the cast was portrayed out of the gate, because they released this cast list and you come into the first episode and every it's so diverse looking. You have different body types, a wide variety of people from different cultural backgrounds and races, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, this is gonna be good. And then when they start to follow the specific people, you're like, oh, okay, so you're not going to show the curvy girl at all, just in the scene where she gets fat shamed basically by
Oh my
Abhishek.
God, thank you.
That's
I was just about to say that. Like, the only time we saw the entrepreneur baddie was when she was being fat shamed, because obviously that's what diversity is for in these shows.
That was very disappointing to me, because I was very excited to see the curvier women, to see the bigger men. I guess you can call them curvy too, the bigger men. And it just looked like different types of people from what we had previously seen. Mm-hmm. And it seemed as if they were only just there so people would not drag them on Twitter about not being diverse in body sizes and race. And it seemed like they were just kind of there to be like, see, we're diverse. See, we chose people that have different
diversity quotas. Like,
mm-hmm.
You just cannot tell me that none of them presented interesting storylines, at least in the pods. You cannot tell me that they were not interesting in the pods. There's no way.
Exactly. And we didn't even get to see any of their journeys, like not even a snippet, not a pod date, not a moment, it was such a letdown that already once that happened, I kind of knew. I was like, okay, we're in for something here. And so the first trio, quadruple, I don't even know how to call it.
I feel like there were there were quadruples and love triangles and squares, and
it was a mess. But the first grouping I want to talk about is Shane, Natalie, Shayna, and Kyle. But first, what was your first impression of Shane?
Okay,
because he was such a prize. Like, so many of the girls were after him.
I was so confused as to why he was the prize.
It made no sense. And his voice, I found his voice extremely irritating. If I had heard that voice on the other side of the wall, I would have been like, I don't know. I can't live with somebody that sounds like that for the rest of my life. It's going to get on my nerves. He would have been eliminated right then and there. But the fact that he was being pursued by multiple women, and he just seemed extremely immature. He presented that very much like all American, like white male who's like big and tall and has blonde hair and blue eyes and is like, oh man, we're going to go to the party tonight. Like that stereotype. Yeah, and it just instantly turned me off. I was like, no.
I think the main part for me when it came to Shane was, to me, he has crazy eyes.
Yeah, he does.
And I just personally feel like people with crazy eyes, I really don't care what else you have to bring to me. Like, I know you're already crazy. And so it was just like, oh, they bought a crazy Kyle on here. And obviously there's a guy named Kyle, but like, he looks like his name could have been Kyle as well, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. And can we talk about this love triangle that first started out with Shane, Natalie, and Shayna? And how toxic that got.
I think, okay, so
quickly.
How can it be a love triangle when it's just nothing but love bombing sessions in a pod? That's my first thing, because they don't know each other.
No.
And from what we understand, they're only doing the pod things for like 10 days.
Yes.
And they're not even doing like hour-long conversations. Like, they're shorter conversations than an hour.
Okay, so a lot of people don't know this, but essentially, Brittany found this Reddit thread that kind of exposed the production side of Love is Blind and how long the pod dates actually are and how long they actually film for. And essentially, the first couple days, the pod dates are only 15 minutes, like 10 to 15 minutes long. And you just kind of cycle through people. And somehow in 10 to 15 minutes, you're supposed to basically cross people off and kind of narrow it down to who you actually want to talk to for longer than that. And then eventually, once you get quote unquote serious in, I guess, 10 days, which is bizarre to even mention, you start to have longer conversations and they can grow up to like an hour, maybe 2 hours. But yeah, essentially you are proposing to somebody after talking to them for collectively like what, 6 hours if you're lucky.
Probably.
That's so crazy to say.
That's my thing. It's just like I couldn't believe that we were having like love triangles because okay, and this is the only time I will say this, like I agreed with one statement that Shane made where it was like you're supposed to be taking advantage of this full opportunity and talking to everybody. Yes. I agreed with that. The problem was that's not what he was doing.
No, it wasn't. And honestly, I think the predator in him, I hate to even say it like that, but I can't think of a different word. The predator in him sensed the vulnerability of Natalie because Natalie presented herself as just this soft, nurturing, warm person in the pods who's just there to embrace him and coddle him and be there for him and just build him up. Like Natalie in the pods versus Natalie outside of the pods, night and day. Talk about bamboozle. Like, he was, in his defense, he was bamboozled because the Natalie that we saw in the pods versus the Natalie that emerged from the pods, they were not the same person. I'm sorry. Like you went from somebody who just allows you to be obnoxious and doesn't hold you accountable and allows herself to be gaslit, like pick me on 1,000, to somebody who's constantly making fun of you. Picking apart everything you do, calling you annoying. I was like, hold on. Did she finesse him?
She definitely played him. Like, no, I'm not saying like I like him or anything, but to the way that she acted in the pods, she acted almost desperate.
She did.
Because the fact that when she came into the pod and he came in all excited because he thought it was Shayna.
Oh, that was bad.
I screamed. But then I began to laugh because again, she's like, okay, if I am telling myself I'm feeling a guy and I go into the pod and he says another girl's name, I'm out.
It's immediate. It's an immediate no for me.
We are not on the same playing field here, and you have clearly felt somebody else. So I'm out. Like, I'm not going to do it to myself. Instead, she sat there and let that man be mad at her that he called her the wrong name.
To me, okay, so in the beginning, like I said, my first impression of Shane, he turned me off just by his personality traits, right? Not my cup of tea. Nobody cares. That was the first red flag I saw that I was like, oh no, girl, you need to run as far and as fast as you can, because when you present an issue to a man that you are interested in dating, whatever you want to say, and you present an issue to him like, hey, like, and they don't even let you talk. They don't even let you get out how you feel. And they immediately jump to being the victim, to gaslighting you for being upset, for becoming upset themselves. Like, he threw a whole tantrum.
He told her that if he was like, well, if you're mad about that, like, I think that's kind of douchey. And it was like, wait a minute. Wait. Like, did you just turn her rational response to you calling her another girl's name?
He turned the tables on her so quick. It was actually scary. And you could tell how shocked she was because she had nothing to say.
Yeah,
she
was just frozen. And he left. Didn't he leave?
He left. He did.
Yeah. And I was like, red flag. How, girl, you came back? What? Red flags.
And this is the thing. Okay, so the whole premise of this show is, love is love blind. Can you fall in love with somebody without ever seeing them? And can the emotional connection you build with somebody without ever seeing them trump like whatever physical characteristics they may have that you may not even typically like? So that's the whole premise. I think the danger in not being able to see someone, see their facial expressions, because it's more than just looks. I feel like chemistry and attraction goes beyond just looks, and the show kind of minimalizes it and simplifies it a little too much, because chemistry, attraction, all of that is about body language, is about facial expressions when you're talking to them. How do they look? How are they receiving what you're saying? How is their body moving? Is their body like embracing you, welcoming you? There are so many other factors and mannerisms, like, inflections. Like, there's so much that just their overall aura that goes into it, that I think that, okay, so obviously love is blind. I get it. But I think that if they had been able to see each other, jumping ahead, but I completely forgot about Nick and Danielle on my list.
Oh my gosh, we can do them next.
Okay. So, for example, like that part where after Nick and Danielle get into their first huge fight, and didn't Nick say, if we hadn't been in the pods building that connection, I would have been out? Like,
yes. Again, why are we like, love is blind, but red flags are not. Like, you don't have to see the person to hear a red flag.
So can we talk about Shayna accepting Kyle's proposal when she was clearly into Shane, and what the heck?
Shayna is the reason why Christianity gets a bad rep.
I agree, because she hides behind her religion while being extremely, extremely anti-Christian, like the opposite of Christian. How are you going to be talking about
hateful and mean? But like,
hate? Okay.
How do I put this? Shayna needs focus. Like, I could not stop staring at Shayna because she looked like she needed to wear glasses, and
especially during the reunion, she kept
like
squinting
the entire time.
Yes, during the reunion, she kept squinting. Is that your?
I was like, do you need glasses? Like, get them, because this is insane. Like, the same facial expression. But I personally feel like with Shayna, because I respected Shayna for how she called Shane out.
Yes, she held him accountable. She did not take his shit at all.
Because, like, you don't need to see a person to realize that they were giving you that they were being full of crap.
Yes.
Because he was telling Natalie one thing and telling her another, but Natalie was going back and telling people. So obviously she was like, well, what's up? Like, are you wasting my time or not? And him, instead of owning it, got mad at her and she left.
The fact that he made Natalie his girlfriend when Natalie started questioning, like, hey, you called another girl's name when I came in. Like, what's going on between you and that? Like, Shayna, like, what's up? And then he's like, you're my number one. Your name is on the cover of my notebook. Which, like, wow.
Would that make you feel better? And it's like, actually, we probably should have talked about this. But instead, you are doing what, the 0 to 100 love bombing.
Also, how are you asking me to be your girlfriend when you're here to find a wife? Like, sir, what is happening right now?
Didn't we just get into a conversation where you got mad at me because you were telling me that you should be able to, like, talk to everybody because you're trying to find your wife? Like, is that not what you just said in the argument before this?
Okay, so let's skip ahead a little bit and talk about Kyle not accepting the fact that Shayna clearly did not want to be with him and was showing him with her every action and word that she was not interested.
So, one, the moment he announced that he was an atheist, she first of all thought that he said he was the Antichrist.
Yes.
Like,
she did not react well to that.
I laughed because I was like, sis, okay, hold on. Like, yes. The fact that you, for some reason, said yes after you said that your relationship with God is very, very important to you was mind-blowing to me. Because I'm like, my spirituality is very important to me. I don't really see myself aligning with somebody who is the opposite of me.
Right.
And that's okay to feel that way.
But the fact, why did you say yes? The fact that she said yes, but my thing that I was just like, is he stupid or is he dumb? Because during the reveal, after he proposed and she accepted and they met each other, you could tell by her body language that she was not into it.
That kiss was like, it was like she received his lips open mouth.
She was just kind of like, oh, that's what you look like. Okay, hi. And then she was just like, I don't know about this. And even in the midst of them meeting and it's supposed to be this happy moment, she's trying to find an exit and he's just not letting it go because he's so dazzled by her looks.
Because she's so hot.
And I was just like, and even during the whole happy couple, paradise thing, she left Mexico. She did not want to be there with you, sir.
She made a vegetarian eat meat, sleep in a different room, and then flipped out on him.
She literally was like, okay, I'm gonna go to my room. And he was like, excuse me, at 9 p.m. First of all, you have a separate room. Second of all,
7. I think it was like 7. It was so early.
And she's just like, yeah. I was like, bro, she does not want you, like, at all. To the fact that she left a free vacation, a free all expense paid vacation, and she chose to leave. If that does not tell you, and he was still like, we're going to make it work. I'm not giving up. I was like, okay, so he's just dumb.
And then
He's
he's
not going to
like,
see the truth.
is that really such a big deal for you? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, how are y'all? What?
Moving on.
We're gonna jump. Yes.
We're gonna jump ahead because we need to speed up. We're gonna jump ahead to I can't remember their names. Danielle. Thank you, Danielle and Nick. Real quick.
Okay.
So,
to be clear, after watching the reunion, I feel a lot differently.
Yes, agreed.
Them.
Yes.
But while watching the show, I felt like Danielle was not ready to be in a relationship. I felt like she should have sought a relationship with a therapist. And I felt like I thought Nick might have been ready for a relationship, but I also felt like he had like a real serious like Captain Save-A-Girl complex.
I 100% agree with everything you just said. And I also feel that there were so many uncomfortable undercurrents when they went to visit Danielle's family, especially between her and her mom, that made me very uncomfortable.
I felt bad for her when they met her mom, because her mom was condescending and like kind of downplayed Danielle, like whatever. I don't know what happened to Danielle in her life, but her mother clearly sees a part of that as a joke.
Yes.
Because the way that she kind of just, I don't know. I feel like if I'm introducing you to like the man that I say I'm going to marry, what I don't need you to first start off doing is talking crap about me.
Exactly. And talking about all my problems and we're just so glad that she's finally found someone. Like, her mom just gave me the vibe of the mom that competes with their daughter. Instead of nurturing and being there and uplifting their child, they're actually in competition with them. And so it made me uncomfortable. With Danielle, I also felt like watching her strangely was triggering for me, even though I don't necessarily deal with the extreme levels of anxiety that she does. It was so triggering because it was just like, when you have dealt with somebody, because not only is she anxious and she has panic attacks, she also gaslit the hell out of Nick so many times. It was like she wasn't hearing him. Like, he would be talking and she wasn't hearing him. She was only hearing what she thought he was saying instead of what he was actually saying. And it was very frustrating to watch. And it wasn't fun to watch. Like, I didn't find it entertaining or like fun. I was actually really uncomfortable watching a lot of their scenes. And I felt like Nick was being emotionally abused by her. But then at the same time, I could turn around and say, oh my goodness, like, she's suffering and she really needs help. So it was just weird to watch.
Yeah, like because I remember I told you, I was like, she's coming off like she's not ready to be in a relationship. Like, she's coming off like she might be a little too broken for a relationship, because again, red flags, you can be a good person and still not be ready for a relationship.
Absolutely.
So it's like she was really like, she reacted off of her personal trauma more than she reacted off of him.
And like you said, I feel a lot better after watching the reunion too, because they talked a lot about, their edit and their portrayal and how they're in couples counseling and they've learned to communicate with each other, which makes me feel a lot better. And it seems like they're getting along better now off camera. Yeah. But also, I think Danielle did talk about on her Instagram that she felt that her edit was a little harsh, and they only showed her and Nick's disagreements. They never showed the times when they were having fun and in love. And so it's like, she was like, they took all of our disagreements and just strung them into one long edit, and that's all you saw.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the cast said too. So it was just like, oh, okay, well. And then, like they talked about how like they're clearly taking their relationship very serious.
Yes.
And like the fact that they're in counseling, and I just was like, okay, well, I really did not know what to think of y'all. Like, I really thought that Nick's body was telling him to run.
Right. He was sweating so much during that wedding ceremony.
Yeah.
The fact that they said yes at the altar, I was shook, because I thought for a fact Nick was going to say no. I was like, oh, he's going to say no.
To leave her at the altar.
I thought so too.
Because even the way she was talking, I really thought that Nick was going to be like, listen, we can like keep dating, but like we need to work on some things.
We're not ready for this step. Okay, so moving on to Jarrette I can't even say her name. Mallory and Ayanna. When I tell you that there is no other trio that caused me the same amount of rage and just internal cringe as these three, because they include the two only Black people in the cast. So I'm already going to be feeling things. And the way that Jarrett showed his entire asshole on national television. I'm trying really hard to move past it because seeing them at the reunion, they looked so cute. And like, that was another wedding that I was shocked happened. And they both said yes. I couldn't believe it because I was for sure that one of them was going to say no. And I was praying it was Ayanna because she truly deserves better. Yeah. But they both said yes, to my shock and dismay. And they seemed a little bit more cohesive at the reunion and, more like a unit. But the way their story unfolded on TV, I don't know if I could have gotten over what Jarrett did. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
So if you are a person in your 30s, we've probably all had that one relationship where it was like, we knew from the beginning that it was a bad idea. But we did it anyway.
Yes.
And to me, that's what this relationship feels like. Like when he did, first of all, because if you notice, he did not actually propose to Mallory.
He didn't. He did a soft proposal.
He would have proposed, what would she say? And that man acted as if he got left at the altar that day. Now, I'm very happy that the men in the show did not shy away from crying or expressing feelings. I thought that was nice. But it's the fact that he did this whole production from a possibility of a question and then went into that next pod date with Ayanna, told Ayanna basically, you're my second choice. She walked out of that room and I was so proud of her. I was like, yes, ma'am. Yes. Then she stopped and I was like, oh God, please don't go back. Please don't go back. Please don't go back. Then she went back and he proposed and she said yes. I was like, Ayanna, no.
Yeah, no. It just, to me, it was just the one castmate sentence said it all. After Jarrett's heart had been broken by Mallory, and Mallory was also very emotional. Yes. She showed more emotion crying about turning Jarrett down than she did in her whole relationship with Sal, but we have that coming up. Literally, more emotion crying about turning Jarrett down than her whole entire relationship with Sal. But her like telling him like, I'm sorry, I feel my heart going in a different direction, let him know that she wasn't interested. And like you said, he literally acted like someone had just stabbed him in the heart right there. And the cast member, I can't remember who said this, when he went back over into the guy's side, who said, well, there is somebody else who is like a sure thing, basically. Like, oh, well, there's someone else who really likes you. So, basically like, don't be so sad. Like, there's someone else. And the way he said it, though, was giving me, oh, well, she's a sure thing. She's definitely going to say yes. She's into you. And that just broke my heart even more for Ayanna. I cannot imagine her experience watching this back. I really can't, because I would be so embarrassed for my friends, my family, my pastor, everyone in my community who knows me to see this unfold on national TV. I would be mortified, especially after that conversation.
Everybody even referred, like the men consoling him were basically just like, I mean, you're not going to leave here alone if you just go with Ayanna. Like, it was so disheartening.
After that, especially after that conversation that he had with Mallory at the party where they all met each other for the first time face to face. The disrespect of him being like, oh, I knew Mallory was going to be fine. Oh, yeah, I knew. Ayanna surprised me because when he met Ayanna and said, oh, she didn't look like her voice. Excuse me, sir? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And there was a lot of conversation on Twitter saying that that alluded to some level of colorism, maybe he felt that Ayanna sounded really, for lack of better words, Black. And so when he saw her, he was surprised by her being on the fair skin side. I mean, she's
By
not
her
like fair
racial
skinned, but
ambiguity. Yeah.
right. I mean, she's clearly a Black woman. We could all tell she's a Black woman, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so there was some commentary on Twitter that, you know, maybe he was alluding to that, and that felt very colorist, especially contrasted with his reaction to Mallory and her being the quote unquote exotical preference, and him going on and on about her dark curly hair that he had dreams about, even though he'd never seen
Apparently
her.
he was dreaming about her dark curly hair. I was like, man, listen.
Knowing she was going to be beautiful because he knew that her mother was Polish and her father was whatever her mixture is. You know, there's Latin mixed with
Also
something else.
remember, Jared did that whole thing where he said when he thought about where he was going to be in 50 years, he knew it was going to be next to Mallory.
I mean, it was just a lot. And I think for a lot of Black women watching that, it just felt very familiar in a very negative type of way, especially if you're a darker skinned Black woman. If you're a Black woman, period, just the disrespect, feeling like the last chosen, feeling like someone's second option. If there is an exotical in the room, that they're going to go in that direction first. It just brings up a lot of feelings, I think. And I think that's why so many Black women online were really involved in the discourse. And so many people just were not for it at all, including Ayana's parents.
That petty ass prayer her mama did.
The fact that her father could not remember Jarrett's name.
When he brought her up to the aisle and was like, you better take care of her. I felt that threat.
Yes.
Through the TV.
And the mom was like, please don't say yes. Please don't say yes.
She was like, God, wherever you're leading her.
I will say that Jarrett's parents were wonderful. They were like one of the highlights of the show for me. His parents and his sister.
And stuff. I was not ready for his dad to get that emotional.
Oh my goodness, about being the first, that his son's wedding being the first wedding he officiates.
Yeah.
And just clearly how strong their bond is. Even his sister just seemed like a phenomenal human. Just his whole family unit just seems really great.
Also, you know what else that made me feel like? How long has his dad been waiting to officiate his son's wedding?
Too long.
Because this man literally started crying. Like,
well,
has he been waiting for Jared to get his life together this whole time?
Yes, his whole storyline was like, it's time for me to find a wife. But then when they went on to actually like, okay, so the honeymoon Mexico trip was really cute. I'm not going to lie, even though I wasn't a fan of him and her choosing him, their vibe is very cute. It's clear that they have a connection. It's clear that they like each other. It's clear that they have a bond. So it's fun to watch them together. But then when we went to watching them like living together, and we saw that Jarrett had kept gifts from his ex-girlfriends, he was going out to the club with his homies on a Tuesday night till 5 a.m. Like, there were just so many things that I was like, okay, you say it was time for you to get married, but there's nothing that you have done in your life that say that you're ready to get married.
I think he kind of falls into the category because I mean, I know guys in my life where it's like their homeboy gets married, or like they see other people getting married at their age, and his response is like, man, I got to get married. And I'm always like, why do you feel like you need to do that? He's like, because I mean, I feel like it's time. Not that I'm ready to settle down. I feel like it's time. And he kept saying stuff like that through the whole show. And I was like, Ayana, you do not have to be the man, it's the woman to take care of this man. Because he doesn't seem like he's like, oh, I'm gonna do what it takes to be a husband. Like, I'm gonna make changes when I get married. Do you think these changes are gonna happen overnight?
This is what it is, Brittany, because you didn't watch season 1, right?
Nope.
Okay, so obviously the big breakout couple of season 1, Lauren and Cameron. And when you juxtapose Lauren and Cameron versus Ayana and Jarrett, the biggest difference is Cameron loved Lauren and wanted to marry Lauren, specifically Lauren. Right? And was like, I love this woman. She's amazing. When I watched Jarrett and Ayana, even when Ayana's mom asked, what do you love about her? And this triggered the fuck out of me. And
I had to put I literally turned the TV off and like went to go journal because the raw emotion.
I can't. And he was like
hurt.
He said her resilience and what else did he say? How her strength and how Black women we have had this strong Black woman stereotype, the super woman stereotype pushed on us for so long, to the point where it literally kills us. It kills us. Our childbirth rates are dangerous for mortality because they think we're stronger and we can't feel pain. The way that we're taken advantage of in the workforce, the way that we're taken advantage of in our relationships, the way that we're raised, where our own family members adultify us at young ages. In school, we're treated at younger and younger ages like we're adults and given adult responsibilities, and then we go home and we're looked at as adults and given adult responsibilities. I'm getting just like worked up just even talking about this.
I'm trying to remain calm because whoo, triggered.
So him just saying those words, no matter how innocently he meant them, like they trauma bonded in the pods over their stories, and we won't go into it here. And he was really impressed by how much she had been able to overcome in her life. And that's wonderful. But even her mom was triggered and was like, okay, but what is it about her?
Yeah, it was like, I mean, I'm glad that you think she's strong. Like, we have to be. And I think that's another thing that really disappointed me, because that woman, she poured her heart out to him in the pods. She
really did.
Her passions, her dreams,
yes,
her everything. She made that man feel comfortable enough to open up about his own trauma.
Yes.
But the only thing she was good enough for in the description of why he liked her was that she was resilient.
Yes.
Resilient for what? Because you knew you was finna put her through shit.
Ooh. Oh my God.
Like, my soul hurts so bad because that shit, I was like, I will never accept being told I'm strong or resilient as a compliment.
Never.
I will never, ever accept it. And the fact that this woman poured her entire heart out, has been completely open and honest with you this entire time, is clearly a walking goofball and a sweetheart. And all you could think to say was, she's resilient.
He couldn't say, oh, her beautiful sense of humor, how much she loves people, how sensitive she is, how she listens. I really appreciate how she's always there for me. Like, no, but she's strong and resilient. Sir.
I was like,
ooh, I can't. And honestly, that is the foundation of why I feel like their relationship ultimately will not work. I mean, I don't want to root against them. I'm rooting for them for Ayana's sake, because she seems to really love him, and I hope it works out. But the fact that he doesn't seem like he loves her specifically, and he was happy to be marrying her specifically, is what, to me, is the biggest red flag about their relationship.
Yeah, because he didn't start talking about, I thank God. Oh, I thank God for leading me to Ayana. Did he? Or was it the rejection from Mallory? Help me help you. Because don't you dare put God in this.
Don't.
Everything that you did was basically settling for her, because at no point during the show were you specifically talking about how amazing Ayana was until your wedding day.
And that is one thing I will give to Shane. Even in the love triangle quadruple hot mess that was Shane, Shayna, and Natalie, at least he said it multiple times. Natalie is my number one. Natalie is my number one. Natalie is my number one. And even when Shayna came back the day he was supposed to propose to Natalie and poured out her heart and finally admitted her feelings, he was still like, whoa, you're fucking with my head, but Natalie is my number one.
Even when Shayna's little shicey ass went to the barbecue and thought she was going to just steal Shane, he was like, no, Natalie is my person.
So at least I can give him that. On that note, no matter how shitty he presented himself, he still had that on Jarrette. Because Jarrette, yes.
Since we're back to Shane for a second, I do not give a fuck what kind of conversation we're having. I don't give a fuck what kind of argument we're having. If you can sit there with your whole chest and tell me that you hate me and I'm the worst thing that's ever happened to you, bitch, what? You thought we was gonna get married?
The fact that he looked so shocked when she said no at the altar, again, this was one of the hugest shockers of the last episode, essentially, was the fact that Natalie said no, because for the longest we thought that was like the sure couple.
Yeah.
And the fact that she said no, he looked shook. He looked completely shaken.
But it was just like, you said you hated her and that she was the worst thing that ever happened to you the night before your wedding. And then you thought that she was going to get up there and be like, yeah, sure, totally.
It just goes to show how completely delusional, deluded, and potentially okay. So Brittany and I discussed this because there's a whole Reddit thread that we mentioned earlier that exposes everything, right?
Super juicy.
And so I made my brother watch the finale with me. My brother, who, by the way, had never seen a single episode before that. And the second he saw Shane on screen and his interactions, he was like, "Oh, he's on coke." And I was so shook by this because it never even crossed my mind. I thought that he was just spastic naturally. And I turned to my brother and I'm like, "For real?" My brother's like, "Oh, definitely. I've seen a lot of guys on coke," and he fits it perfectly.
Oh my gosh.
Then the Reddit thread was like, "Oh yeah, he was on coke the whole production." And then I was like, well, that doesn't really fit because I just don't see Natalie as traditional, straight-laced 401k having as she is, dating someone who's consistently on coke. So I don't know if he was on coke because I just don't think Natalie would accept it. But I do think he was probably on some type of like steroid usage going on there that made him just act erratic and deranged.
Yeah, because, I mean, the way that he acted at the bachelor party.
Oh my goodness, when he couldn't hit the baseball and he literally threw a whole fit.
Flipped out. It was like, baby.
And even all the guys were like,
I can't believe Sal hit the ball and I didn't. My guy.
The toxic masculinity that Shane represents.
It was like they went from being emotional crying men to hella toxic in almost the same episodes. And it was like, wait.
It was like whiplash. Also, red flag that Jarrette and Shane are so close. Okay, so now we got to keep going because we're running out of time. All right, so we want to touch on the least interesting couple of this whole season, Mallory and Sal, except at the reunion, okay, because Sal is bitter AF, and I need to know the real tea of what Mallory did to him. I need to know
what Mallory did to him, but like I don't know because he was so bitter.
So bitter. And the way he handled himself at the proposal, first of all, I thought for sure he was going to say yes. And again, my brother, the Love is Blind whisperer, was like, no, he's going to say no.
Whisperer.
And I was like, how do you know this? You haven't even watched the show. And he was like, look at my guy. Look at his body language. He knows that she doesn't like him. And I was shook. He was like, he's going to say no. And then when he said no, and just the way he said it and what he said was really thoughtful. And the way he addressed her family was really thoughtful.
Brandon, her sister looked like she was ready to come out the seat and handle him.
Oh, her sister was not having it. Was almost like a big sister, I told you so moment.
Yep.
But also like angry, like, I cannot believe you did this to my sister on national TV.
Yeah, which again, I respect because sisters.
But Mallory just never seemed into Sal. She kind of seemed into him in the pods. But now looking back, I feel like she was actually more into Jarrette in some aspects. But then I remember I was watching a reviewer and they brought up something that I never even thought about. And they said, Mallory never made a connection with anyone really, not like that deeply. And so I think she wanted to be a part of the show so bad that she just kind of picked the person that she felt would be the best.
Oh.
But they do not believe that she genuinely fell in love with anyone because she just couldn't let her walls down. Even with Sal, it was very awkward. You could tell that she wasn't attracted to him physically after they met.
Yeah.
She was just kind of like, I don't know. And so that was weird. And she also gives me the vibes that she usually dates Black men. So I don't know if that's part of why she wasn't attracted to Sal. I mean,
she kept kind of implying that over and over again. And I was like, we get it, sis. We get it.
But the thing is, that whole speech that she gave Jarrette, Freudian slip, that she gave Jarrette, where she was like, well, I've gone for guys like you in the past and it's never worked out. Like, quote unquote, I've dated Black guys in the past and it's never worked out. So now I'm trying someone from my culture.
I was like, ma'am, dating Black guys is not the qualification that you think it is.
And also, I don't know. I just feel like at the end of the day, you like what you like. And Love is Blind. I mean, there's
a very tight comment there.
Well, okay. Well, at the end of the day, you do like what you like, whether that's steeped in self-hatred or low self-esteem, whatever the case may be. You like what you like. And because you like what you like and, you know, everything that comes with that, probably not the best thing to go into a show like Love is Blind and like not really open yourself up to the experience. Because out of all the cast members, to me, Mallory is the only one that never fully opened herself up to the experience. She had walls up, you know, like she was gaslighting the hell out of Sal. She was being disrespectful with Jarrett. She just never seemed like she knew what she wanted. Like when she was drunk, she was like, hell no, I'm not ready to get married. And then next scene with Sal, of course I'm ready to get married. I'm like, what?
That was a lot.
It was like whiplash. Like she was a different person in every scene. Like, oh, Sal sang to me and made me a picnic. I just love him. He's the best man. I just can't wait to start a life with him. Next scene. Well, I don't know, Sal. Like, I'm just not sure. Like, I'm just like, Mallory, like, what is going on? And it's because she never really allowed herself to get vulnerable and get to that place where she really opened up. To me, that's what I think. Because what do we really know about Mallory?
That she has a house.
That's all we know.
That's what we know.
Like, we can talk about all the other contestants and say something pretty solid about them and, you know, who they are. Like with Sal, we know that for him, family is everything. Like the way he is with his family, how much he loves them. He's an artist. You know, we can say so much about him. With Mallory, it's like, I mean, she owns a house.
I think she likes Taco Tuesday.
That's all we know. Like, oh my God. Okay, so moving on from them, because to me, they were so boring. Except I want to know the tea, Sal. Sal, you need to drop it on a Reddit thread.
Abominable said Mallory is on a time crunch. She didn't want to be married. She just felt like she needed to be. So she chose someone.
I can definitely see that.
I agree. I totally agree. Because that's what it felt like, too. That's what her connections felt like.
Mallory, I really hope you find what you're looking for. But
let's talk about I just want to give, before I go into my full rant here.
Oh God.
I just want to give this like lesson of like, you know, when they tell you that you should love yourself and that like you should love yourself more than other people. And like you just needed give me an example of how this works. Deep tea.
Yes.
Because
okay, we got to set it up.
Okay.
We got to set it up.
They start off in the pods.
And we have Deep D and Abby Shake. And I'm sorry, I'm not calling him Shake and I'm not calling her Deeps.
Nope. It's Abby Shake and Deep T. So it starts off, first of all, Abby Shake immediately comes off as a douchebag because all of the questions that he's asking in the pod are like, do you like to work out? Oh, my favorite. Do you like to go to festivals?
Oh, God,
do you like to be put on top of of guys' shoulders? Would I have difficulty putting you on my shoulders?
This was wild. The fact that a man has the lack of like self-awareness to say this on national television, mind blowing.
Not only did he say it on national television, but like he said it as if there was nothing wrong with what he was saying.
Yes.
On a show called Love is Blind.
Sorry. What in the world? And what was it that he said to Ayanna? Like, I like to buy women's clothes, and she starts laughing. So it's like we get this montage from jump of just him being incredibly distasteful, misogynistic, gross, superficial. And so we're all thinking, okay, so this guy obviously is going to get dropped. But no, he doesn't.
But you know why he doesn't? Because he has this fake ass revelation about how his insecurities with himself and how he looks could possibly be why he's focused so much on looks. After spending a whole pod session talking about how he's never dated anything other than blonde hair and blue eyes, because when he came to the States, the only two things he was amazed with was white snow and white women.
When he said that, the level, like, I'm so sorry. The fact that he doesn't think that his ancestors are weeping. I'm just like,
weeping.
Not even just his ancestors, his damn mama and his daddy.
Like, what I really want to know is, what did his mom think because he
Ooh.
kept making comments about how like he shuns his Indian culture, how he's been ashamed of his Indian culture, and all this stuff, like the whole series, because he was using Deepti as a way to quote unquote get back in touch with his culture. So he made it a point to talk about his struggles with his culture. Like, what was that like for your mother, who also told you wasn't shit for Deepti anyway?
The fact that he was literally using Deepti as like an Indian experience, like get back in touch with my roots, is so despicable and just so low. I don't even have the words for it. The problem is that Deepti saw all these red flags.
Yep.
She saw when a man sits down with you, albeit most of the times we can see them and we're not talking to them through a wall and a tiny microphone. But when a man sits down with you and tells you what his type is, and it is the complete opposite of you in every way imaginable,
every way,
you need to leave. Like, you need to be like, you know what? Why am I here? Because what you just said you liked, I can't be that if I tried. Like, I can't demelanin myself. I could get a blonde wig. I could get blue contacts. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to be a cheap imitation of what it is that you actually want. So I'm going to go because clearly we're not on the same page. But she, not only did she entertain that, she continued to stay and have conversations with him. And then when he, had that whole fake revelation about how he needs to be less superficial, and he opened up to her about how he was overweight, it was almost like he knew exactly what to say.
Yep.
To get her.
Yep.
And to connect with her and to let her lower down her walls, because now she's feeling, oh, you know what the most powerful aphrodisiac is to a woman is to feel, oh, I changed him. Oh, I'm saving him. Oh, look what I'm doing. He was so superficial. And now look, I'm really making a difference in his life. Really, and I think that's where she got caught up.
I'm really connecting with him. I feel like we really built a connection in that we understand each other like so well.
Yes.
Like, no, he told you who he was and what he was in the beginning. Every other woman was like, nah, was not going to deal with Shake. She went back because, like him, she didn't date Indian men either.
Yeah, I think that deep down, it's weird because I think that deep down they both have a common desire, and that desire is to truly connect with their roots in a meaningful way and build a community within their own community. Mm-hmm. But I think what's stopping them, particularly Abby Shake, is the self-hatred, right? And the repression and how much he's had to repress who he really is because he's been trying to assimilate into white and westernized ideals, and he's been trying to belong, and his value system is all messed up because his value system is based on white supremacy. So you're always going to lose when your value system is based on something that you could never be. You're always going to lose. And it's like, he's not self-aware. He's self-aware enough to know that he is self-hating to some extent, but he's not self-aware enough to understand that he's never going to find a relationship where he's going to be happy that would even remotely lead to marriage until he fixes that in himself and learns how to love himself.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect there. And I think for Deepti, this experience actually taught her to embrace her culture and who she is and all of that. And I can see her now like dating more Indian men, or maybe if she never does, at least I feel like she got something from it. Whereas with Abby Shake, I don't think he got anything from this.
Except the fame and notoriety that he wanted.
The clout.
Yep.
That's what he got from this.
Yep.
But the way that she told him off at that wedding, I was so relieved. I've never been so relieved in my life because I really was going to be upset with her if she said yes.
It was because we were watching everything for the first time on TV. So the way that they edited it made it seem like we were like, does she not know what he's saying about her? Like, does she not know? How is nobody telling her?
And you know what's sad is at the reunion when, you could tell she was emotional and she was just like, you don't do that to a friend, because at the end of the day, even though he just kept on going on about how he wasn't physically attracted to her, but he still made it a point to say that she was one of his best friends and he just loved and cared about her so much.
Over and over.
And she sat there on that reunion couch and she was just like, the way you treated me on national television and the things that you said about me behind my back and the fact that I brought you home to meet my family, something I've never done. and you met my mom, my dad, my brother, and they had to sit with me and watch what you said about me. My heart broke for her in that moment because she was literally like, you don't treat a friend like that. Like, that's just not something you do to your friends.
Right.
And I was just like, the pain that she must have felt, like watching it back with her family, the pain, the embarrassment. I can't. It's too much. The way she was so calm and composed, I was surprised.
Yeah, she did better than me because.
But word on the street is
the way that the whole cast would do that deep sigh, like shut the hell up, dude. Every time was beautiful.
But word on the street is she is currently dating Kyle.
I really hope not.
That is the word on the street, because that was the hugest shocker at the reunion, is when Kyle, Shayna, Natalie, and Shane kind of had it out, and Kyle finally had his moment to really try to drag Shayna, even though she was basically trying to deflect and avoid being dragged by him, is when Kyle all of a sudden was like, I should have chosen Deep D. Like, that's my biggest regret, that I didn't choose Deep D. And apparently that was Deep D's other second really strong connection in the pods, and they just never showed it. And she was actually torn between Kyle and Abhishek, and she was torn because she didn't know which way to go. And I guess, I don't know why she finally decided on Abhishek, because that was a huge mistake. But so apparently they're dating now in real life, and they're kind of trying to see where it goes, which is interesting.
Really?
Yes, that is the word on the street. Okay, just tell me how you really feel.
You know what? No, because Deepti has the right to date.
Yes.
And find out what she likes and what she doesn't like.
Yes.
And if she did connect with him in the pods, then at least she gets the opportunity to see if he's actually anything worth being with outside of the pods, because she didn't even get to have the true experience that she deserved, because she was with somebody who was just there for clout.
Yes, agreed. So on that note, let's just wrap it up by talking about the reunion. And my favorite part of the reunion was when Nick and Vanessa Lachey both took turns dragging Abhishek for filth.
Listen, the way that Nick was looking at Abhishek was phenomenal.
He looked like he was just holding himself to the chair by his contract alone. I was like,
especially when that man said the only woman that he's attracted to sexually is his wife. His face got so red. I was like,
okay, first of all,
telling himself like, I have to keep this job.
He literally was like, you saw him take a deep breath. And my thing is, who says that about a man's wife in front of the man and his wife? Like,
somebody who is there for clout.
But apparently, according to the same Reddit thread, like, Abhishek was kind of like upset about the way he was edited on the show, even though the show creators have said that they actually cut out most of the bad things he said. Like, what we were shown was actually tame compared to actually what he was saying, but he was still mad at his edit because he obviously became kind of like the villain. And so he just decided that since he already got a bad edit and people were already like hating on him and dragging him on Twitter and whatnot, that he was just going to lean into the villain narrative and become even more of a villain, which is what led to all of his antics at the reunion.
Yeah, he was on his Instagram like, oh, I want to give everybody a warning. I just heard back from the editors, like they gave me a bad edit for the reunion. And it was like, did they give you a bad edit? Because everything that you said was terrible.
I find it interesting that he seems so upset at the cast for becoming quote unquote fake. And I think what he was really saying is, and to this, I do see his point. They were friends with him when they were filming the show. They were clearly friends with him. They hung out with him. They talked with him. They were his friends. And then it was like the second the show aired, because you have to remember when they're filming the show, they don't know how it's going to be edited. They don't know what we're going to end up seeing. And so I think what he was calling them out on was, oh, y'all were friends with me when we were filming, and even during like after filming, like before it aired, who knows, like maybe they were hanging out together, going to bars, doing this, doing that. And then the second the show airs and you see everything and you see how he's portrayed, and obviously, the general public turns on him and dislikes him so intensely, I can kind of see like his castmates like backing away from him and backing away from the friendship and being like, oh, it's not a good look to
Well, I
be
mean,
friends with
Messy
you.
Nick did say he unfollowed him because he felt like everything he was posting was terrible.
Well, it's like 50%. This is another example of him not taking responsibility for his actions, right? Because he's thinking y'all are fake as fuck because y'all were friends with me when we were filming. But once you saw the show and you saw my edit and you saw the public's reaction, all of a sudden we're not friends. But it's like you're missing a huge chunk of the story where you're just an asshole and you're not taking
The
responsibility
fact
for
that
being a
Shane
horrible
was like,
person.
dude, why do you keep saying stuff like that? Like, it's wrong. And he was like, well, I'm not wrong. And it's like, you are wrong. Because even Jared was like, dude, like, what you've been saying is wrong. Like, oh, is that right? He's like, yeah, that's right. And I was like, y'all are so childish.
So childish. And so I think it's like, on one hand, I kind of get where he's coming from, but he never takes responsibility.
Nope.
For anything.
He also doesn't apologize to Deepti for the utmost disrespect. Because he was like, well, you can't help being who you're attracted to being. And it's like, be that as it may, you did not waste an opportunity to talk shit about the girl that you claimed was so amazing.
If I was his mother, I would be so ashamed. And honestly, I don't know how you can meet somebody's family, albeit it's reality television and it's a storyline, but I don't know how you can meet someone's family and then continue to disrespect them the way that he was. I was like, that is
especially
wild.
In a culture where family is important.
Look, her brother had all the smoke for him on Instagram.
He wrote to Abhishek, and then I went on Abhishek's Instagram, and it was like a screenshot of him trying to FaceTime her brother, and it was like, answer the phone, bro. And it was like, don't you understand? Like, my brother is a mess, but if somebody would have done that to me, my brother would have met them at the door.
Let me just say that I really hope Abhishek never runs into Deepti's brother outside in these streets, because it's going to be on site. And it's like, he's not even going to understand what's happening. He's just going to start getting hit.
I don't want her brother to catch a charge for that wasted space.
But yeah, he was a huge disappointment, because it's like, it seemed like he had potential, especially after he saw Deepti in real life, and he seemed to really like the way she looked.
Ass grabbing and like, oh my gosh, and kissing her and all this other stuff. And then
I will say this, a psychologist that I like to watch on YouTube broke it down really well. And a psychologist basically said, in the pods, they fell in love with the idea of one another, and that idea as, people who had been so kind of separated from their culture due to, trauma of being immigrants and trying to assimilate and this and that, turning away from their culture for survival, but actually deeply wanting to connect back in with their culture. And so when they find a partner that holds that promise for them, it's very enticing. And so falling in love with the idea. But once he meets Deepti, she's obviously beautiful, but she's a constant representation of his Indianness, which he's trying to run away from. So it's like the more he's exposed to her, the more he's around her, the more he sees her, the more that it's like a mirror. The more he's forced to face the fact that this is something that he has not accepted about himself. And so it starts to repulse him, and he starts to be repulsed by her. And they were basically saying that that's what happened, because when he first met her, he seemed very attracted to her and he was very excited about her. But as the weeks went on,
she became his aunt.
Yes. And so it was almost like his anti-Indianness, like him being so self-hating and anti his own self, was literally, it was like an internal battle. It was literally repulsing. She became a representation of everything he hated about himself.
Yeah.
And so being around her was a constant reminder. And so he was just repulsed. And so he was pushing her away. And I was like, that's exactly what happened.
That's crazy. I mean, I don't disagree with this thought. Like, dang.
That's exactly what happened.
Oh, God, I'm still disgusted. Oh, also, my last and final thought. Shayna's family was at January 6th. I am
the dog whistle.
If you're a proud American.
The dog whistle of that statement. Are you a proud American? I was like, what are they trying to say?
I was like, what if he would have said no?
Also, the fact that Kyle clearly looks mixed to me, mixed with something to me. Okay. to me. I don't know his cultural background, racial mix-up. I do not know. Yes, he presents mostly as a white man, but his features, I feel like there's a little bit something else there. Okay. So the fact that he was asked that question.
It was so weird. It was like, oh, like, yo, you like the dirt bike? I like the dirt bike too. Yeah. Yeah. But like, are you a proud American? Huh?
I was shook. And the way that they all were just looking at him.
And they all like deadpan stared at him when they asked the question. I was like, so all of y'all were at January 6th, weren't you?
I was just waiting for like the camera to like pan to the front porch where there would be an American flag waving and like a Trump bumper sticker.
For her to announce that her dad was a grandmaster, because it was just like, I have never heard that be asked in a conversation.
That scared me. I'm sorry. If somebody brought me home to meet their parents and that was a question they asked me and they were of the Caucasian race, I'd be gone.
Right. It would be like, thank you so much for inviting me. You guys have a wonderful time. I was looking down the road. I was like, nope. Y'all not about to hang me out here talking some, are you a proud American? What?
It would be like, get out part 2. I am out. Goodbye.
Right.
I gotta go.
I was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot deal.
That was a lot. It was one of those moments where everything about Shayna's comments about Natalie and her disbelief that Shane would dare to choose Natalie over her, it all made sense in that moment. All made sense. I was like, oh, you're shook at this white man who's quote unquote the prize, being of the Aryan class, would dare to choose this Asian woman, even though she's absolutely beautiful and seems to be very kind and wonderful. How dare he choose her over you, his counterpart? The Aryan princess of the blonde hair and the blue. I mean, that is literally the subtext that it was giving me. And it was so cringe.
It was.
She was like, so not bothered about Natalie until she was bothered about Natalie. And then she tried to sabotage their relationship. It was a mess.
Yeah. I was like, well, hello. I think the moral of this story still is love can be blind, but red flags are not.
Facts.
Please stop minimizing red flags. Just to say that you're in a relationship.
Just to say you're in a relationship. Because look at Nick and Danielle. No shade to them. They're married now. But can you imagine being married to somebody who's constantly going to gaslight you, who constantly is going to struggle to understand you because you don't know how to communicate with one another? You're already in couples counseling and it's supposed to be the honeymoon phase of your relationship. Do you want to be married like Jarrett and Ayanna, who said multiple times on the reunion how hard marriage is and how Jarrett is still struggling to stay inside, past the street lights going out and not go out with his boys till 5 a.m. I'm just saying, like, I would hate to be in a relationship with someone who not only did they choose me second on national TV and then flirt with their preference as well, but also within, a couple months of marrying me, talk about how hard marriage is over and over and over when we're supposed to be in our honeymoon phase for at least the next 2 years.
Also,
just saying.
Again, I understand the need to want to I understand the need to like want to be loved and stuff, but like legit be deep tea, love yourself more. Because like, which I can't tell you, the moment she looked at him with that smile and said no, because she said in an interview that she knew she wasn't going to marry him on the night that they did the massages.
Wow, that was a while back.
Because she said that the whole date felt fake and disingenuine. And when he told, because they had been talking about, they had already been having conversations about like not having chemistry and stuff. And she was trying to figure out what he was talking about. And then at that date was where he basically said like he wasn't sexually attracted to her.
That sucks. Can you imagine someone saying that to you after they've proposed to you, though? Oh my God.
You were literally like all up on my behind, but you're not sexually attracted to me?
What he meant to say is, I'm not sexually attracted to the Indianness in you that reminds me of who I actually am and the fact that I'm not a white man. And even though I only date white women, that will never make me a white man, but I will date a white woman and probably marry one, pretend that I am white for as long as possible and try to procreate and create children that look more white so that I can then convince myself even further as generations go on that I never existed.
Drag him.
Sorry. Just came out.
real talk. I just like I've been really like trying not to drag anybody because it's just like it was so many moments watching this where I was I felt personally triggered by strangers I don't know and will never care about like ever. And it was just like, one, I feel like I've really come a long way in my date, like in myself, like because I'm not dating right now because the idea of dating sounds terrifying, which would be a whole other podcast. But like to remember like some of my past failed relationships and how some of them were mirrored in some of the things that these men were saying. I was just like, oh, Jesus.
I was getting so many texts from Brittany that was like, what the fuck? Why am I watching this? Why did you make me watch this? Like, what is happening? Like, I'm literally at work and it's like text.
I was like, I hate you so much for this.
Brittany's like, I'm on episode 3. This is a dumpster fire of a shit show. And I'm just like, she's like, all of these couples need to be banned. I'm like, oh my God.
I was so upset because it was really just like, because to me, the whole idea is like 90 Day Fiance, but it said it was 30 days. I'm like, this is love bombing.
It's a 30-day turnaround. And honestly, I don't think we'll ever get another Lauren and Cameron. And okay, you know, Barnett and Amber are still together, you know, okay. But we will never get another Lauren and Cameron. I really do think that was one of those things where they were destined to be together regardless of how they met, you know? And it's just interesting that they met like this and we all got to watch it and we all got to be a part of their love story. But if they had met at a bar or if they had met at someone's party or bar mitzvah or whatever, they still would have gotten together just because they had that connection. So I don't think we'll ever get another couple like that again. But I will say this, the other countries are very fascinating. Love is Blind Brazil is really interesting, and Love is Blind Japan is absolutely fascinating. So I highly encourage watching those two if you're interested in these type of shows. But we have run out of time for our podcast tonight. Did you have any final thoughts, Brittany?
I don't have any final thoughts about Love is Blind. I do have a fun announcement for you guys.
Ooh.
So we're hoping that you guys liked this TV chat.
Yes.
Because we decided to do it every Thursday night.
Yes.
So every Thursday night at 7 p.m., you can come back here. These will be separate from our regular scheduled podcast topics. Like we're going back to our regular podcast topics next week. But we're going to talk about every Thursday. We're going to be going through each episode of The Courtship.
Yes. And okay, just explain what it is in case they haven't seen the previews or anything.
So The Courtship, we've talked about this. You have to explain this because I talk about it in like this would be a dream come true. So you have to explain the correct way of this.
Okay. So The Courtship is basically a dating show. So think like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, but this is NBC's version and it's Bridgerton meets The Bachelorette. And The Bachelorette for this very first season that they've ever done is a Black woman, a beautiful Black woman. And so it's basically on this like countryside estate and they're all wearing old fashioned clothing. Like they're back in those times, like Bridgerton times. And she's wearing these beautiful gowns and the guys are dressed in the outfits. And it's going to be on NBC on Sunday nights. I want to say at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Cable, so we'll be watching it on Hulu.
Yes, we'll be watching it on Hulu later. So that's why our reviews are on Thursday nights. But essentially, she's dating all these different men, going on all these romantic dates, having all these great things happen. Back in the
day, if slavery didn't exist.
Right. If slavery never happened. And, you know, we got these opportunities as Black women to have these type of fairy tale type storylines. So, yeah. So I'm really excited. I think it's great. I love that a Black woman is the first woman that they're choosing for this show to open up the show because this is a new show. They've never done this show before. And I just love the representation, the positive representation, because there's this whole movement online now, Black women being soft and Black women in luxury and Black women deserve softness and love and beauty. And we deserve to be courted and we deserve to go where we're celebrated and to to be with people who love us and appreciate us. And I love everything about that. So I'm very excited to watch the show. And we're going to be talking about it on Thursdays, 7 p.m. So if you're going to watch it
this Thursday, we're
so
doing
the
Thursday.
show premieres this Sunday. So if you're going to watch
it already, it premiered yesterday.
Oh, look, I've lost track of time.
Yep.
So it's already happened. If you have Hulu, you can watch the playback. And then we're going to be talking about it this Thursday.
And then next week, we will be back here Monday night at 7 to go back to our regular scheduled podcast. And we are doing another community talk.
Yes.
And the community talk is Black Love is Black.
Period.
So if you're ready for that conversation and about the really interesting discourse that the romance community has had by trying to label Black romance something different to appease other people's feelings, come on back on Monday to have that fun chat, because we're here and y'all know I'm about to drag. Y'all know I just letting y'all know, if this is a sensitive topic for you and my words hurt,
oh my goodness,
don't watch this podcast, because I'm going in.
She's going in. I already know.
Ready for this conversation? I'm going in.
Oh my God. And on that note, we are going to say goodnight. Thank you so much for joining us for this fun chat. If you're just tuning in, the playback should be up shortly, or you can just rewind back and start from the beginning. Don't forget to give us a like. It really does help our algorithm numbers and stats. So give this a like. Don't forget to share if you care. You can share it on Twitter, Facebook, or wherever you'd like. And we will catch y'all on Thursday for our chat on the courtship. Bye.
You'll be able to set your reminders for the courtship conversations starting tomorrow. I will have them all up. So, I'll make the announcement on our Instagram so you can go set all your reminders.
That's right. And we will be saying goodnight. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.